Elliot Page, the actor best known for the breakout role in Juno and riveting performances in movies like Inception, and Netflix's series The Umbrella Academy, has been one of the most liked people in Hollywood. Yet, deep inside his heart, Elliot grappled with a truth not ready to be shared with society. Rumors were going around for years, and every fan and, of course, the media wondered which gender identity this actor was. It is not until age 33 that Elliot sees it fit to confront the rumors and finally live freely. Elliot has been very vocal regarding some of the challenges he had to face on his way to finally coming out as a transgender person in various interviews. He spoke honestly with Oprah Winfrey during his show, The Oprah Conversation, about acute pressure and anxiousness related to continuing to live a life that wasn't truly his. He spoke of how finally being in a place of embracing his identity was relieving. Elliot has spoken out about these struggles in various ways, including on the cover of Time magazine, which made him the first openly transgender man. He spoke of emotional draining from keeping his real self under wraps, attesting that for years, I felt like I was just holding my breath. It wasn't until I started living as my authentic self that I could breathe freely in ways more than one. Such interviews have brought out his struggles, but turned into an inspiration for many others faced with the same problem. Moments in the last decade of the theater of confirmation by Elliot Page. Now, we look into the courage to speak his truth and its broader significance. We're also taking a closer look at just how his revelation has impacted the entertainment business and the global conversation on gender identity. It's through this that Elliot's fight stands as a very potent reminder that to be oneself is not simply to win a personal victory. It will also be turned into a wellspring of hope for others fighting this same battle. Follow along as we trace a few of Elliot Page's inspiring journeys through stories of steps that led him into this high-wire act at such a precarious juncture in his life and his career. From those very first days of speculation to powerful interviews where he finally confirms the rumors. This has been a story of resilience, self-discovery, and the courage to just be unapologetically true to oneself. Early life and career beginnings. Elliot Page was born to Ellen Grace Philpotts Page on February 21, 1987, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. He grew up in an extremely nurturing and radiant household in which his emerging talents and creativity were enhanced right early in his life. His mother, Martha Philpotts, was a teacher, and his father, Dennis Page, was a graphic designer. His professions are mostly credited to his early interest that he developed as a child in stage performance. Elliot held artistic matters close to his life, and he liked to act. That is how things began to act in local theaters and school plays. He did not take part in a lot of these activities like most of these children did. This interest was nurtured and developed at the very early age of Neptune Theater School. Very supportive of what he was already passionate about, his parents sent him there to learn acting. Neptune Theater itself is the oldest theater in Halifax, and it gave Patrick an extremely solid grounding for acting. Little Patrick could grow his talent in a very structured and nurturing atmosphere. Elliot broke into professional acting at the ripe age of 10, making his television debut in the Canadian children's series Pit Pony in 1997. He played the series Maggie McLean, which was centered in a coal mining town, and made a career standout impression. His performance seemed to set the stage with the promise of range continued well beyond childhood. This success translated into the same titled follow-up television movie and solidified Elliot as a coming star in Canadian television. Riding on the success of Pit Pony, Elliot was working with several more series behind his name, as well as a couple of films for Canadian television. He did the critically acclaimed trailer Park Boys and Marion Bridge, which clinched Best Canadian First Feature Film at TIFF in 2002. These early performances allowed Elliot to flex himself as an actor by accepting complex, emotionally layered roles for the first time in his career thus far. Though his star was already on the rise in Canada, Elliot reached the worldwide spotlight in 2005 with the release of the film Hard Candy. He plays Haley Stark, the 14-year-old teen acting in this razor-edged thriller film who needs to be very scary in his part, yet revealing depth and empathy in his acting. The highly loaded part made him deliver a frightening play, but with much depth and empathy. This was the film where people around him, more so in Hollywood, really did see some concrete potential in him for a real career in acting. Success for the motion picture meant more significant opportunities available to Elliot and a definite role change that would mark his still nascent career. In 2007, Elliot worked on Juno, a comedy drama regarding people coming of age, under the direction of Jason Reitman, and was written by Diablo Cody. Elliot played the leading role of the quirky and unique Juno McGuff. He was only a teenager but had just accidentally been impregnated. The film did relatively good business commercially and critically, as he received 4 nominations for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. It was only then, when his Juno character was critically appreciated, that he got the Academy Award nomination for the Best Actress category. In that role, he could combine humor, depth, and vulnerability for his character, making sure of his recognition as one of the most promising young men in acting from Hollywood. Most of his movies were box office flops, but it seems that all the reviewer circles in Hollywood agree on Juno being his break-in film. While Juno was more of a career-defining role, it was a social phenomenon. The success of the film shoved Elliot into stardom and made him a household name and a face for a new breed of Hollywood star, one not afraid to take on unusual and dicey roles. The film was also a hit internationally, especially among the youth who could identify themselves with Juno's independence, wit, and genuineness. Rise to fame. After his first break in Juno, Page's career took another important step after he had built on his success in Juno with a role in Christopher Nolan's 2010 sci-fi thriller Inception, where he played the brilliant architect who creates very complicated dreamscapes. He starred with a strong ensemble cast: Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Tom Hardy. Inception went on to be one of the biggest hits in the 2010 summer season, visiting a balance of commercial and critical success regarding a tale of the complicated yet beautiful storyline and special occasion. Inception was a milestone to be able to prove that, at least for Page, he could stand among the biggest names in Hollywood. The film is so complex in its story and actions that it could be easily revoked at best with high skill and composure, which he brought very well into play. Inception is the vehicle with which he can prove his worth in that crowd of versatile actors and be able to easily move from photo-facial independence to blockbuster hits. Just as the face of television was changing, so was Elliot Page. In 2019, he took on the role of Vanya Hargreaves, one of the superhero siblings, in a Netflix series called The Umbrella Academy. It was a superhero pastiche that went down with black humor and family drama. Vanya is the 7th adopted dysfunctional child in a family of superheroes with a rich emotional life. In playing him with weight, vulnerability, and quietly intense performance, Page's role as Vanya has been highly esteemed by critics. The Umbrella Academy was a cultural phenomenon, and right at its core was the performance given by Page, which put him in a position to sink completely into the traumas, the identity struggles, and the departures of self in ways viewers need to reflect upon. The second season, in particular, allows the character development of Vanya and his discovery of himself to become quite the core of the series, and his easy touch and presentation becomes quite the driver of the narrative. Furthermore, these are the roles that made Page foster his career in watching the overall aspects of the human experience from one's youth to being an adult, from ordinary life to extreme situations. Each performance presents in his career a new dimension, and with talent coupled with the ability to surmount the odds, he has become one of the most respected and influential actors of this generation. With Page's development in the art being ever evolving, the influence of such roles is bound to be felt way outside the walls of Hollywood. Rumors and speculations. Speculation and talk about Elliot Page's gender identity had always been there, growing stronger as the years went by. There were persistent rumors, fueled by both subtle cues and overt actions, which finally made the point most interesting, and sometimes, unfortunately, the fodder for tabloid gossip. Even before Elliot came out publicly to talk about his gender identity, there were murmurs in high places that the celebrity was said to be uncomfortable with traditional gender expectations. People paid attention to how frequently he snubbed conventional Hollywood glamour for styles that were either androgynous or very masculine. Although this kind of fashion sense hit home with many fans who applauded his genuineness, it formed the very foundation for speculation concerning his gender identity. As Elliot continued to advance his work in Hollywood, gaining more appearances in different films that proved to be major hits, such as Juno and Inception, this attention continued to heighten. The public, always on the lookout for something to expose. Believed that his appearance and demeanor proved to be a story more substantial than his actual skills. The accusations went beyond the man who was clothed in that person and delved into his private life. Soon, questions surrounding his sexual orientation became quite public, specifically regarding his coming out in 2014 as a gay man, which was followed by deeper and more invasive speculation surrounding his gender identity. The media played a very big role in this. It was very supportive and suppressing in nature. The rumor columns and tabloid pages were always very open to getting a hold of any clue that would show Elliot to be hiding a secret. The headlines would always be hinting at more than just fashion choices. Something deeper was yet to come out. At the same time, it tapped other voices, more so from within the LGBTQ+ community, urging caution and respect, insistent that it was necessary to grant people time and allow them to have peace with themselves without the gradual stretching of tension from public scrutiny. They reminded me that it is a deeply personal and complicated journey to be connected with gender in everyone's life, and it was not right to force someone into a deep revelation they were not in a position to make about them. Among the general public, opinions on the rumors were mixed. That said, the angst was more from wags of Elliot, who I believe were mostly from the lesb community and who kept their reactions to a minimum in the hope of his feeling safe and supported if he indeed turned out to be trans enough to one day come out. Elliot's gender identity, to say nothing of the debates about who he could be, started to dot Twitter accounts and Tumblr blogs. Most of them admired his quiet rebellion from the Hollywood norms when it came to gender. Not everyone responded well, however. Various quarters reacted with transphobia and misconception, issues that many transgender subjects must fight daily, to signify an atmosphere of both support and hostility that surrounded Elliot. Added pressure on Elliot's back is now the case with each of his acts and reactions talked about with concealed meaning. For Elliot, these must have been years of great speculation, the pressure to live and get through life with the public eye, fully aware that so many people awaited confirmation of what he most probably already knew must have been a heavy burden. Not easy to live with the scrutiny of everyone and everything, save oneself for that matter, while grappling with one's identity just to somehow make the journey a bit easier. In later interviews, Elliot reflected on what he felt during that time of coming out, trapped, unable to say who he was, the public eye, an ever-judging eye, looking over him all the time. Speculation, most often by well-meaning fans, added to the weight of his eventual revelation, which became more a source of personal liberation at an opportunity with ripe public legitimization. Coming out as transgender. Coming out is an ultimately personal act, usually tinged with this blend of bravery, fear, and freedom. For Elliot Page, one of the most visible actors, with top billing in Juno and the Umbrella Academy, such a process was deep and highly significant. His coming out as transgender defined his life in the larger dialogue over gender identity and representation. One of the biggest steps was taken by Elliot Page in December 2020, who came out as a trans man in a very truly honest post on Instagram. It was beyond personal. It represented one of the huge defining moments in these years-long debates on gender identity that trekked through traditional channels of media and beyond. In a post, he shared, "I am trans. My pronouns are he, they, and my name is Elliot." In those few simple words lied the heft of years of inner tussle and a long struggle with self-acceptance. He thanked followers for their support and acknowledged the continuous challenges transgender individuals keep facing. In his favor, though, was the explosion of public reaction that went overboard in fawning over Elliot. It did fuel a larger discussion around transgender visibility and rights, for that matter. After these first announcements, he did a series of interviews in which he discussed the personal and social implications of his transitions in depth. Among such impacts was the interview with Oprah Winfrey on the Oprah Conversation on April 30th, 2021. This was the first ever on-camera interview that Elliot was doing just after coming out, hence the interview was important both for the celebrity and his viewers. He also somewhat candidly chronicled during the conversation how the pressure and anxiety drove him to a point where life had become unendurable. Oprah just asked the right questions, filled with compassion, that allowed Elliot to be able to express the richness of his emotional journey. He said during that interview that he felt happy with the change. Two feelings he would have never experienced before this. The simple yet profound experiences of seeing himself in the mirror and his body filling up with a sense of peace and relief were at his body taking place. He said it was indescribable. There was so much personal meaning in finally living as who he is. His sensitive interaction with Oprah touched feelings of freedom and helplessness at the same time, leaving a perfect impression on the viewer with a strong narrative of personal development and self-acceptance. Another vital platform from where Elliot came out with his transitioning experience was in a Time magazine June cover story. He spoke of the complications and challenges life presented in those ways, how he had needed his identity at the core of him, yet could not fully accept it. He shared with the class the challenges of living a career in public life while continually wrestling with his gender. The interview brought to light a gap between public persona and private reality and captured the emotional and psychic costs taken by living a double life. Time also briefly touched on larger social issues of discrimination that transgender communities face and the pervasive call for greater inclusion and understanding. In other words, the very humanizing way a story shared by Elliot serves to inform the public of the systemic issues most, if not all, people who are transgender come into contact with. His openness made such issues human and evoked empathy and solidarity. Moreover, the influence of Elliot's coming out was not limited to his private life but expanded to change social perceptions about a transgender person within the entertainment field. His visibility as a problematically gendered star brought escort attention to the fact that transgender people are outrightly underrepresented in the media. Such visibility can work as a massive means to destroy stereotypes through mass media and accomplish a more diversified and inclusive profile concerning gender. Even after coming out, Elliot has continued speaking out on the issues of concern of the community and demonstrating for them by using his platform at all costs. Most importantly, he has been able to speak on the matters concerning the people's representation in society and the systemic creation concerning change affecting the well-being and other problems that affect the trans community. In his past life, he has spoken for a set of activities to be implemented to improve the lives of transgender people from discrimination in life, societal and industrial impact. The revelation by Elliot Page on being a transgender person has far-reaching effects on the entertainment fraternity and society at large, since the declaration seems to call attention to be put on issues to do with gender identity, and, in particular, the rights of transgender people. In and of itself, this wasn't a super huge personal milestone. It was the coming out of an incredibly important cultural moment beyond Tinseltown. Since day one, Hollywood has traditionally struggled with the boat of diversity, and the accurate and respectful depiction of trans individuals was no exception. The day Elliot Page came out as a trans person burst the doors wide open. A-list and socially visible were Page and his Walking in the Daylight, in his affirmed truth, an action within a forum identified by a lack of diverse representation on its reels. Before Elliot's revelation, there was sensitive treatment accorded to transgender characters on screen, whether in movies or TV shows, but with the imposter lenses of tragedy, sensationalism, or stereotypes attached. Page changed all that in transition. He is continuing with big productions and big franchises, such as the Umbrella Academy, being out and open about being a transgender man. It does, therefore, provide something of a high-profile template for how to carry out the business of being a newly out, high-profile actor. That is, of course, important in an industry often accused of rendering barren and, times, detrimental portrayals of transgender lives. Coming out for Elliot also created a ripple for other opportunities for people like him in the LGBTQ+ quarters regarding reveals in the entertainment industry. It created opportunities for broader casting methods, something any transgender actor should be in the lane for, free from the confinement of being relegated to what is called expected gender roles. The overall social impact of Page's coming out is difficult to overstate. His story mainstreamed a conversation around gender identity that was bucking up against societal normativity, seeking to cultivate a greater wave of tolerance. By sharing his journey, Elliot Page brings to the fore the daily challenges most persons who are transgender go through, from living in a misinformed or dismissive world to battling internal conflicts through life decisions that have not accord with one's true self. Page has also done many interviews and spoken to the public in statements in which he clearly expresses how emotionally and psychologically it was a relief to be finally able to come out and show the real him. His candidness has made visible to many people the transgender experience, insightful into the profound happiness and freedom that emerges from living with authenticity. His story bores conversations concerning the support of transgender people in personal acceptance and systemic change. Page's coming out can also be linked to larger movements for transgender rights. For the most part, it has been seen as one of the factors giving more people the capacity to support policy change on related reforms or legal provisions due to the increased visibility of transgender people in the media. There have been increased advocacies for more inclusive healthcare practices, laws against discrimination, and supportive systems among transgender individuals due to increased figures of people and advocates coming out, Page included. But more than this, Page stands as an icon not only for his battles, but also for human intercourse about transgender rights and visibility in contemporary society. He speaks to such issues as violence against the transgender community and having their healthcare coverage. His activism serves as gossip to the realm of rights, thus driving chit-chat in public opinions and policy debates on the needs of transgender people. Page's story, both on an emotional and public level, has contributed much to the ease of many transgender people and the empathy towards the latter throughout society. He has stimulated fuller conversations on gender identity that do away with stigma and bury empathy. From educational institutions through to workplaces, even communities, the issue of transgender people is being interrogated more holistically, mainly courtesy of cultural change from figures like Page. For many transgender people, just knowing that someone, Elliot Page, became successful and entered the stage of thriving by just being true to oneself serves to inspire and elicit hope. It also validates of hard work and challenges undertaken for their problems and stands forth as a role model for other transgender persons with the same problems. The kind of visibility these events facilitate helps counterbalance existing derogatory myths and inaccurate information on transgender experiences, encouraging a more informed and compassionate understanding of what it is like to be transgender. The impact that Elliot Page is having personally, professionally, and in business and society will only continue to grow. His work and his advocacy are going to continue being a huge part of the conversation around gender identity and rights for transgender people. Hopefully, the strides that Page was able to make in representation and helping to portray the reality of existence for trans people will pave the way for even greater steps. Closer than ever, personal reflections and the future. The fact that someone's journey would be visibly clear, looking through that of Elliot Page, is this process towards authenticity. Something personally deep but publicly influential. At the age of 33, Elliot has told the world that to just be a transgender man is to live a rather deep emotional story underneath the acceptance, which is truly that of transformation living in one's truth. Elliot's reflections were colored very much with a deep feeling of relief and elation. In an interview, he said the act of finally living as an authentic version of himself brought surges of unparalleled peace. He said that freedom felt like being able to look in the mirror and see the person he had always known he was. That moment was not just a landmark. It was a very serious turnaround in his life as well. His stimulation finds lucid expression in the talk he took with Oprah Winfrey. I was finally able to just exist, to just be me. And that's an indescribable feeling. What one can derive from his present is that his journey toward this place of self-acceptance has not been very smooth. Elliot has shared how years of inner conflict and social pressures evoked feelings of worry and unease within himself. His reflections may well speak to what emotionally and psychologically so many had to bear in the course of navigating their public gender identity. However, in his candor about these struggles, he had been both cathartic and enlightening to his audience. It shows the complexities of identity and the sort of courage it takes to be in a position to stand up for the real self and yet go all out to veil him. Elliot's newfound thrill can be in no way related to his authenticity at the moment. Well, he has come forth as gender affirmative, and that has just been able to bury the past anew by some energizing means. Elliot speaks in multiple interviews of how being true to himself has given him a new career and personal life. He speaks not of personal satisfaction, but of the joy of freedom to be full in both professional and personal situations. It bleeds into his work, giving new depths to performances and authenticity to the formed relationships with the audience. In the future, what awaits Elliot Page is professional ambition as soul growth. Still, he remains committed to other professional projects that align with his values and self-identity. His role in the Umbrella Academy has thus taken on new dimensions in his journey. It has allowed him to bring deeper perspectives into his character. His work choices will most likely follow his pursuit of telling authentic stories and his advocacy for representation and inclusion in entertainment. Yet, so is Elliot's future beyond his career. He used this platform to raise awareness of issues affecting transgender people, touching on discrimination and violence that a huge number of these people go through. It is through public statements and activism that he wishes to help create an environment that is more tolerant and supportive towards those going through similar journeys. That commitment to advocacy speaks to how it had to come out of personal experiences and how that journey ignited a broader mission for change. In other words, Elliot Page's thoughts on his journey reflect deep personal transformation and public impact. Indeed, the state of his fulfilled state in the now and his authenticity are both confirmations of the power of self-acceptance and the courage to live within the truth. Moving on in time from now, Elliot believes in building a career not by following steps but based on value and helping lay the foundation for creating a world for all. His story thus becomes a powerful recollection of the power of authenticity and the difference that it could make both on a personal and contextual level.